So we'll call to order at 6:34. So I'd like to adopt the agenda for today. Does anybody have everyone? You okay? Any second?
Yep.
You okay? Show of hands. Adoption or agenda adopted. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from last week? They were attached. Does anybody have any revisions to the minutes? Motion to, or would someone like to put forward a motion to adopt the minutes? Susan?
I'll second.
Second.
I think there's two sets of minutes.
Yeah, there was, so that was for, that motion would be for the May 4th. Does anyone want to put forward for the July 6th?
Yes. Susan kept some notes, and think they ever appeared.
No, they didn't, I didn't see them attached on the thing, but we can get those in here.
for July?
Yeah, I think Susan Virgin kept them.
Oh, okay. Oh,
For the walkthrough.
Just the walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Okay. So business arising. Gary, would you like to go ahead with the budget update?
Sure, certainly. Thank you. You can see it's fairly brief in terms of its summary. We obviously haven't spent a lot from the operating budget. It's essentially the funds that the committee has that's sort of directed for its purposes. Contract expenses, we're roughly just over halfway through the contracted expenses. Appreciate that the contractor, I think, does a lot of things pro bono or without charging us for probably lots of things that the contractor probably could. Good evening. I unfortunately forgot to check in with Mr. Smith to ask of the remaining budget what, if anything, may actually be committed in terms of future work that's planned or work that's been done but hasn't yet been paid for. So, I mean, obviously both parts of the budget are relatively healthy. And the previous business, new business and trails speak for themselves. Fairly self-explanatory.
Okay.
And we don't plan on changing any of those amounts into the 2018 budget.
So it'll be the same.
Yeah.
Is it 25,000? Or is that including the?
Or I would suggest we leave it at 24 and 5.
Okay. Okay. So I added the next agenda item to the business. I thought maybe just because it's one of our last meetings of the year, we could just take a look at our management priorities from last year and just do a quick recap and see if there's anything that's been accomplished and if we want to add anything or change the order.
Which list are we looking at?
So we'll start with the capital project priorities. We had expand main parking lot, and that's completed. We still got the addition to the loop trail to the summit. Trail improvement to High Cliff. Has that been completed, the trail improvement to High Cliff?
No, there's been some work done there, which I will address during Crag Keepers.
Okay. The loop trail to 1-2 trail. Boulder Gully to 1-2 trail. Resurface the lot with appropriate surface for medium term to 4 to 6 years. Install washrooms with flush toilets at main lot. Acquire property along the MacKay Blind Channel. Create additional access along Blind Channel and reopen climbs in that area. Acquire crown land property along the north boundary of the park. So would anyone like to?
I just was interested in, there you have installed washrooms and resurface the parking lot with appropriate surface. Is that to make the parking lot more efficient, like layout lines? I just wonder why washrooms are a lower priority than resurfacing.
Probably because that would be quite a bit more expensive.
Right, there's no water infrastructure in that area, is there?
Correct. Or sewer, so you're running more lines and sewer lines.
Thank you.
I mean, an appropriate surface could be recycled asphalt,
Yeah.
which gives you a better surface, a more durable surface.
How about permeability is that an issue as well?
That's certainly more permeable than.
Thanks.
So we don't have any high priorities for capital projects. Does anyone, how does everyone feel about moving the extension of the loop trail too high on the list?
I'd favour that. We need a viewpoint in the upper part of the park. We don't really have one. So.
Okay.
We're talking about the to summit, the item 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we haven't. Yeah.
Is there any other items that anyone thinks should be moved up to high priority or moderate from low?
My sense is there's not a great deal of interest in the last 2 trail improvement items. I mean, I think the ones that are low, I don't think anybody's.
Are you talking about Boulder Gully?
Yeah, above the Boulder Gully to
Yeah,
1,
yeah.
2.
It's essentially a climax this area.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Is there any other trails we think should come ahead of those? Okay, the Funorama Trail was completed this year, I believe.
Yeah, there was some improvements. I would have liked to see a little more vegetation management around the base of Panorama.
Yeah, it's
I think it needs a little more work.
Should we add that to the list?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't move the trail that goes up to 1-2 Guac completely off the list, just in that it allows for pretty quick access from the parking lot all the way up to Octopus's Garden, probably faster than any other, than going up the main trail.
Okay.
It does have a pretty inviting staircase at the start, but then of course the trail isn't all of that same standard.
Is that the Boulder Gully to Glink?
Doesn't it go up to Lumberland? And
So actually, I think this is a different link. I think this is I think this is this was from Boulder Gully goes up left to Super Value and all that stuff. And what's that 10 everybody does? I think it's kind of a new trail going up and over, which actually has significant physical issues in terms of the being cliff line. Unless what it meant was tidying up the trail that goes from Lumberland kind of up towards the Oak Avenue and then back to 1-2. I mean, that area is kind of a no man's, it's a bit of a sort of abandoned.
Toby, could you point out where it is on that map in relation to the Lumberland Trail?
Using what?
Or I guess you can't really, it's between the 1 and 6.
It's probably not even on there, I don't think.
Yeah.
So one is essentially the bottom of Boulder Gully, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if you went rightwards up the hill from Boulder Gully, up there, you could eventually
to the north first and then
yeah.
back
I mean
around.
that trail that's a strange. What is that trail anyway? The one with the passing the 2 blue.
Is that the
I think
trials?
it's Trials
I
by
think
Crag.
that might not be 100%.
Because there's also the Trials Riding Trail starts around that area, doesn't it, as
There are a
well?
lot of trails that aren't on this, and then there are ones that.
Yeah, the trail, there is a link there just south of Crag X there, right, that gets up to Lumberland and then
Okay.
goes back to 1.
Yeah, so that
So in between there.
so the trail that goes the trail that goes from just below the X in Crag X and then goes down and right and then back up and right, that is the current Lumberland Trail. That one,
Yeah,
right?
that's correct.
From the apex of that trail, there is where there is a nothing.
Yeah.
There is an opportunity. There is a kind of roughed out trail there which links in. So 1-2 is just to the right
Yeah.
of where the point. That 1-2 is about there, right? A bit left of where the pointer is now. So there is an opportunity to rough in a trail there, and there would also theoretically an opportunity to build a trail up from Boulder Gully, but almost certainly not in fact possible.
Not impossible. I was up there recently with Heavy examining some of his new projects. It's pretty damn ugly.
I've had a good look at that. So yeah, I don't think it's actually possible. So I think it may be that this item was just the tidying up of the lumberland, just the connector from lumberland to the 1-2 trail, which might have some
Okay,
benefits.
so keep it on there.
For some reason, I thought this one was to improve the one that Matt was talking about from the stairs that go up to nothing, and then there's kind of a slabby.
Go up to Blackstone,
Yeah,
crossing
go up
that
to
bridge.
Blackstone,
but those-
but go right, and then you end up at Lumberland.
Yeah. So that
That one's not on the map
is-
either.
Yeah, that is on the map. That's the one. That is the one that it's kind of on the map. It's the one that's bad. It appears to go up towards Crag X and then back down again.
It starts way down there in that right of way between the two district lots there.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. It is that the way it's lined up there isn't quite right, but it's a reasonable approximation to where it goes.
So which trail are we talking about?
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure out what this means.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so it's
do we
on-
wanna change the Boulder Gully to one loop, 1-2 trail to say Lumberland Trail? I'm pretty sure, like my recollection is that we decided we didn't want to upgrade the Lumberland Trail from a climber's access trail to a.
That we had talked about a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was, yeah.
Okay, so we can leave these as is if everyone, or did we?
But it might be worth clarifying.
I'm interested in why acquiring any property is so long-term when
I was gonna bring that up
the
too.
expense of property is only going to go up and the complication of bargaining for property is going to go up. So why would it not be a short-term goal to convince to extend the park boundary and protect that crown area with the rest of the trails in there?
Which ground area are you talking?
The MacKay Blind Channel?
On the
I'm,
north.
Mankind Blind Channel is a difficult property anyways,
Yeah.
but up above in the corner,
Are we talking about
the northern corner.
No, to the north, like near
Yeah.
the east of the parking lot there.
Fair enough, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's also
Yeah.
a peculiar
Yeah.
parcel, yeah, I understand.
So I think that the negotiations will take a long time and you want to secure the fact that you're actually interested in the land as soon as you can. Otherwise, you can not be thought about as parkland, but be thought about as developable.
Should we move that one up on the long-term list, or would you
I'd
like
like
to move it up higher?
Yeah.
To medium or short?
I'm interested in the conversation around that.
Okay. Given that in the new OCP, that parcel was designated as recreation, I think it's reasonable to move it up on the list.
Does it need to be acquired though if it's designated
Mankind
recreation?
Blind Channel?
No, the parcel you're talking about to the north there.
Well, we have an OCP amendment on the table right now for green space, so I would like to make sure that it's protected. If it's parkland, that's amazing, but then it should be put into the park,
I'd say.
And perhaps
and
better
then it's better
in
managed.
the hands of the district as opposed to in the hands of the federal government.
So do we want to say high on the short term,
I would say,
or high on medium term?
I'd like to move it up because I just, some of the reasons I said.
Is there any climbing values in there? Is there any park values?
That's what I was gonna say, and I didn't know if it was the right, I mean, this is a climbing park, right? Like primarily, so is that really, do we wanna really spend time and effort trying to acquire property that's not necessarily having any climbing values? I mean, there's other values in it being a park, but maybe not from.
It depends if you want development pushed right up against the buttress of the climbing park and then eventually,
Or access to crags or access to
Yeah.
trails, it could lead to more development of trails leading to the park.
I think the adjacent parcels too are zoned as low, or as residential, like future residential. So it could be like an addition to the park in terms of like, well, I think if we were to expand the loop trail, it would also, like to the summit, it would also go in that parcel.
And there is quite a network of bikes trails who are part of the park, and people use those recreationally for hiking and trails riding and mountain biking, etc. So
Is there anything or anyone that can go and verify the area, or does the district have a kind of an area plan of the area or anything that we can look at and see what is there? Because if it's just another high cliff, I have no idea what would lie at that.
I think when we did the survey, we found that there was a bunch of crags that are not actually in the park as well.
Yeah.
Like Super Value and those ones, and Boulder Gully, it's not even in the park, so it would benefit to.
Yes, that's more complicated because that's that I think is the mineral tenure. I think when we looked at it, is the parcel that contains the mineral tenure, but then we discovered that the mineral tenure itself has a kind of mining tenure, what it's called, has a kind of its own boundary within that parcel. And I think at one point we were going to survey that, and then maybe we lost momentum on that. But so super value, I think, those Boulder Gully climbs sort of, they're not in the park, but they don't necessarily appear to be in the mining tenure either. But certainly, I mean, I think that would be worth clarifying.
Indeed, I think it's a good conversation to have and to do a little bit of work to find out what the future of those lands
So,
are.
Susan, what kind of steps do we have to do to do this? Because I mean, we put it at 6 to 20 years, but if we would need to move it up, like what are kind of some of the basic steps that we need to do? Like, I mean, how do we go about to owning that? Is it like a 4-year plan, a 10-year plan?
It's, well, I can only speak politically, so it's really, I think it's more of a staff question to find out. Maybe that's what the motion is, that we put some resources into actually just finding out if it's even feasible or how feasible it is to.
Would be a sponsored Crown grant on the northerly parcels, dealing with the, because you've got to work that around the whatever mining tenure there may be. The parcels along the Blind Channel are privately owned. And the last time we had a discussion on that with the owner, they were very expensive parcels to acquire.
Was it just the last item, acquire Crown boundary, Crown land property along North
That's
Boundary,
the
that
one.
we're talking about moving
Yeah.
up? So that in fact is the stuff above the octopuses,
Yes.
which is nowhere near, is not in the mining tenure and obviously nowhere near the Blind Channel either. So that is just, as I understand it, that's just a Crown parcel that's somehow stranded up there. And it was, so Chrissy, you had a dialogue with Matt,
Yes.
during the OCP review.
Yes, so originally, during one of the OCP drafts, that parcel was designated as residential as well, the one directly north of Octopus's Garden.
So
And
it's privately owned?
no, it's
Crown,
Crown,
just
but
a
it was like
mistake.
designated for land use in the OCP. And I emailed him and to clarify, and he switched it in the next draft. So both that parcel and the Blind Channel parcels in this draft of the latest draft of the OCP are showing both as recreation. So why don't we move that one up? I think, is everybody in agreement we want to move up on the Crown property on the north boundary? Would anyone like to put forward a motion to, Susan?
That the acquired Crown land property along the northern boundary of the park up to the Crown lease boundary be moved from low priority, long-term to, do you want to move it right up to short-term, 1 to 3 years, moderate priority?
Do we need a motion for that? What, did you want to put forward a motion for staff to provide further information?
Do we need to do that?
Or-
Do you want the motion?
No, I mean, we can communicate that as the long-term real estate facility strategies coming to council. So land acquisitions will come up.
Yeah.
Okay, so no need for a motion. Okay, so let's,
Just to clarify, Lisa,
absolutely.
we are talking, the parcel up to the microwave tower is part of this parcel.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
We should probably be talking about both parcels though, if they are separate.
Yeah.
Everything along the north boundary.
Isn't the one on the right is private land, isn't it?
The one on the right, north of Octopus Garden?
No, to the right of everything.
Oh,
I believe it is,
Isn't that?
Yeah, I think
private
it
land?
is.
That's all, I think that's all deemed for residential, potentially for residential.
Yeah.
So it's only the one just north,
It's
directly
just
north of
I think it's that
Octopus's
square,
Garden.
that kind of square rectangle, yeah, which contains part of the loop, where the loop trail goes out of the park, so it's relevant there.
Mhm.
It also connects to some other trails that may be of interest to some people. There is also a cliff just north of the microwave tower.
Skunk
which-
Hollow?
I'm not sure whether Skunk Hollow's in that
No,
parcel
Skunk
or
Hollow's
not.
lower.
Okay.
No, it is, it's actually possibly in the private parcel. Yeah.
Okay, so that's agreed upon. Okay, quickly look at maintenance work priorities. So we've got clean up Tunnel Rock, replace the kiosk map, install picnic tables opposite Mosquito near the play park and at Tunnel Rock, install a bench at the viewpoint above Octopus Garden, improve the base at Penny Lane, park entrance for safety, brush clearing for sight lines, environmental review, install portable toilets in the main lot. So has that been, that's been completed, yeah.
Do the picnic tables get put in at Mosquito and the play park in Tall Rock? I don't think there's any picnic tables.
No,
No additional ones.
no, it's just, these are propositions.
These
So-
are things that are done under the maintenance contract, is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of money in the maintenance contract budget still. Maybe we could try and put some of these ones forward for this year, unless there's other priorities that are about to happen we don't know about. Like 10 grand left in the budget remaining.
How about the sign, the lonely sign in the middle of our parking lot? It looks absolutely ridiculous at this
When
time.
people could hit in the dark.
Pardon?
Yeah, we did bring that up at the July meeting. Do you know if there's any progress on moving that sign? It's a bit of like you drive into the park and it doesn't have any reflectors or anything on it. So if people were to drive in at night, they might just drive right into it.
Is there any way that we can just remove it?
Oh, we're probably going to be closing the gate at night
Okay.
in the future to
Okay.
prevent the campground that's developing.
Move the campground downtown.
Debris management we have up there. Improve road signage at park entrance. Was there any part of the wayfinding program that had smoke bluffs on it?
Good question.
No.
Yeah, I was going to ask what's happened to signage.
Yeah.
I thought signage was in one of these lists, but it seems to drop. I know there was a comment that signage had to be consistent with the district's new signage policy. But I thought there was an item in one of these lists somewhere.
Improve road signage at park entrance.
No, I think there was wasn't it signage kind of within the park generally?
Like replacing the maps on the posts at the trail
I think
ground.
there was that. Anyway, perhaps it dropped out.
It's rather unfortunate that there are more real estate signs than signs to Smokeless Park on the approach to the park.
So the entrance yellow gate and bicycle flows, are we happy? Well, the yellow gate's been removed. So can we remove that from the item? Or we could keep bicycle flows, but that kind of goes along with doing the cycling strategy. So is everyone happy removing that? And then perhaps we should move a few of these to medium and then make the ones that we think are really important, like debris management, the signage, add those to keep those as high so that they stand out, or do we want to just keep them all as high priorities?
So just wondering, because we have debris management, then we have improved park entrance safety for brush clearing to improve sight, and then we have other references to doing a lot of cleaning, like ongoing program of machine maintenance of trails. Is there something that we can just lump all together, or should we just make debris management include everything, like ongoing program machine maintenance of trails? It just seems like we have a lot of things that are just very redundant in a lot of this.
I think the park entrance for safety is more referring to like sight lines for cars leaving and entering, which may have been improved actually by the installation of the culvert in the parking lot. Is there any of these items we should ask John to finish up within the maintenance work or the contractor?
Is the replace kiosk map update, etc.? Is that actually realistically John's remit? Shouldn't
I don't think that would be part.
Shouldn't that go through some other bit of the?
We could order the signs, I think, through our budget and then have John install them. Is that correct?
That's a job we normally do.
I mean, actually producing a new map, designing a new map, printing a new map is all.
The new map exists.
Well, exactly. No, I mean, as far as I know, there is no plan behind this item. So, but it doesn't appear that this is something just be given to John to do. Well, I'm sure John would run with
I
it.
mean, we can
But
getting it fabricated is probably relatively easy
with the
if
design.
you have the digital file.
Yeah. So that's why I asked the question at the beginning, what does maintenance work priorities mean? Because it doesn't. I mean, if it just means things where a statement, a line item is given to John, like make this happen, then it doesn't appear all of these are of that type. They appear to be more like the management priority list.
Empty in the trail.
It's a capital projects almost, is the
Maybe, yeah.
replace kiosk now.
Yeah, I mean, the kiosk map appears to be a relatively complicated project requiring quite a lot of different inputs.
And the maintenance, really the maintenance things that you've been taking care of, are making sure, you know, the toilets are well stocked, toilet paper, making sure trails are washed
Yeah,
back and
yeah,
and open.
yeah.
None of that's kind of listed there, so I see your point.
So maybe we should move the kiosk and the signage to either capital or maintenance, or capital or management.
Yeah, I think it should be more of a capital
Okay.
projects, and then still high priority short term.
Okay. And so, maybe we could pick one or two items, depending on the cost, for, the contractor to complete this season. We've got a bunch of them labeled 2017, 2018. Tunnel Rock,
Picnic
picnic
tables
tables.
at Mosquito would be popular, it's a very,
Okay.
very high use area.
And the play park is a pretty high use area too.
Isn't the play park already well
Yeah, it has lots of picnic tables.
suited?
There's a picnic table in that grassy area there now, or there always has been, but yeah,
Really?
yeah. So I guess that one doesn't need to be on the list.
Would that be something that we want to do, so this is something we want to do in the next year?
Before the end of the year, before the end of the contract. Does the contract turn over in January?
I'm honestly not sure what we,
I'm just wondering if it would be the best time to build picnic tables in the winter when it rains about 8 months of the year in Squamish, so that we have brand new picnic tables in the winter. Would this be something that might be better to install in the spring, when it's nice and sunny and they haven't been weathered for 4 months and unused? Maybe we could do something else, like, because it is the fall, maybe that's where we can put a lot of money, is our debris management, where we know leaves are falling, branches are falling, Hurricane Irma's coming our way, or whatever's happening, so maybe that might be a good idea to use that money to make our next spring really clean and nice, and then we can spend some money on the picnic benches.
It's true. I just wonder if debris management, if we should actually identify what things we need for debris management
That's
first.
the other thing.
What about either of the trail bases, either Penny Lane or Tunnel Rock?
Yeah.
Lanes really, I think, needs to be high priority.
Okay.
Rock seemed to be okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been along Mosquito, I haven't been along Penny Lane recently, it's in bad shape, but it's a high traffic area, so.
I believe at the time we were putting this together, Penny Lane had just had all the hydro work done, so it was pretty. And there, I do think some of the trails are eroding out, like the one that goes along the base. Is everyone in favor of proceeding with that?
Yeah.
I think the vegetation maintenance at Funorama is probably a bit of a higher priority than
Oh,
some
that's a good.
trails at the base of Penny Lane
Okay.
or,
Panorama's growing in.
yeah.
Okay. Why don't we add that? I think, could we do both of those this year, Gary? Do you think there's enough
that would
budget?
be,
Ongoing.
The vegetation management at the base of Funorama, which isn't on the list, but
Yeah, there we go. Oh, it is actually, it's the
Is
second
it?
last one there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that has been machine maintenance.
yeah, that's been completed.
That's been done, but it hasn't really solved the problem with a lot of stuff becoming more overgrown out of the club.
Yeah, I think they need a machine to go back there with the foundation.
Yeah, I
It's all
thought
in the ground.
John would normally have done that, I was surprised he didn't see that, actually. He's normally gets that stuff, so maybe he couldn't get the machine for a suitable length of time.
I think Keith was in there just, briefly.
Yeah, it could be hard to get Keith on side during the summer because priorities, busy parks, but, yeah, I was kind of surprised, because John usually does really good work, I thought it was pretty.
I haven't been up there since, but did he just do a bit of drainage or something?
Yeah, he improved the trail all right, but that was about it. It's certainly a little more rushed than his normal work. So,
Yeah, I've been there twice recently.
I don't know what finding out what his thinking was about that.
so what I'm hearing is, what I would suggest, what I'm hearing is that we instruct for maintenance is trail improvement at the base of Penny Lane and vegetation maintenance at Funorama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I mention something
Oh,
else?
okay, let's Carolyn first.
I guess my main question, to go back to this debris management, and we do so much clearing and cleaning of the trails. Do we have anything in place that kind of says what people are accountable for? So for instance, if somebody goes and does clean and then we say, oh, you forgot to clean this part, now it's growing in, or you've left this kind of debris, do we have anything in place, or is that kind of what we're hoping to also build in this debris management strategy plan, is to say, when you come in with your tools, you have to clean this up, or when you're just cleaning, when you're just building a trail, you have to ensure that also the sides are cleaned and clipped and well maintained. Do we have anything of that in place, or is that something we want to move forward with?
Is there anything in the best practices guide, Brian?
We, best practices guide if
For
you're that type of
development, yeah.
I'd have to look at that, but you've got to understand too, at the slope loss, we don't build trails much anymore. These are done by professionals. You know.
Yes.
It's, like landlubbers and so on, do the
Yeah.
trail maintenance, or John Harvey does the smaller stuff, you know. And I would imagine both those individuals would exercise best practices to the best of their ability. So we should be looking at the debris management problem, but it's not really to do with building trails.
I should maybe change how I said. We say a lot of trail improvements. So when we mean trail improvements, should we have something in place that says, like, when you're doing these improvements, what needs to be done after they're done?
Like I say, I can address that at the Crag report, but probably be redundant.
I think John's probably a likely candidate to know what needs to be done too. He's
As an example, I mean, so earlier in this year, there was this tree clearance of the elephant's arse area. That's what it's called. Or we can call it elephantiasis, although technically it's not the right name. Or Lower Romans Corner. But that work was done, and then, but the contractor left quite a lot of wood in place. So we, I guess in this case, perhaps being SAS, I'm not sure if it was SAS or the committee, SAS got a volunteer group in to haul out all of the wood, which to where it could then be chipped and removed. So that is, that's an ad hoc one time. How that job was done, because it wouldn't have been affordable just having the contract. If the contractor had to pull all the stuff out, the item was too expensive, as at least we were led to believe. So that was a combined volunteer and district funded thing, and that's how the debris issue was addressed.
I think too, when we see the need for additional debris management based on new developments in the park, we can probably either find volunteers to address it, or address it as a committee at the time, whether we're going to pay someone if it's an issue we're really concerned about. But I think to place requirements of volunteers on the work they're doing in the park might reduce the amount of volunteering in the park.
I guess I was trying to go more prevention, so that we don't find ourselves in a couple of years with, oh, now we have to clean debris that has accumulated over time. How do we do this? Now we need to, if there's just ways of doing small cleanups along the way, then it saves
That's a good idea.
a lot.
Could we include that in our list of questions we sent to Yuri?
And also just looking at best practices as far as, I think looking at it from a debris, impinging on that base of a climb is different than looking at it from a fire management standpoint. And so it's just trying to decide on the standards that need to be in place in order to protect the public around if there's trail development and debris being placed, and what the standard is for less being involved and professionals being involved that know how to not make big piles of fuel.
Yeah. Maybe that's the question we can ask the district too, is if there's any other practices that are similar in other parks around Squamish. Okay, I think we've probably exhausted this. Does anyone have any closing remarks on the priorities?
Are we, I'm just curious, if for example when Brian comes to climbing, discussion of the climbing infrastructure, if that raises items which are essentially maintenance work priorities, do we loop back to this list at that point and add things, or?
I think we can, if we need
Yeah.
to. We'll address it then. Okay, so why don't we move on to management project priorities. So we've got quite a few, on the short term, quite a few highs. So vegetation management, clarifying land issues on the northern boundary, which seems appropriate given our last conversation. Develop a debris management strategy, ongoing review of trail function and user compatibility, develop a cycling policy to enhance safety and reduce conflict in the park, review performance of dry compost toilet in consideration for main parking lot, finalize FMC-BC land transfer. In the medium, we've got define and develop front country and back country zones, work with adjacent land developers to create neighborhood connectivity. So I'll start by asking Brian about the compost toilet. We have reviewed the performance of that.
I can't speak as an engineer or for the engineering department, but I have met with the technician when we examined the performance of the reality of the pile this summer. That would be almost 3 years. I was surprised to learn from the technician it's been installed 3 years. It was quite remarkable. The pile was not the pleasantest thing to look at, but it was remarkably small and would not need removal at this time, so that's 3 years. So it might need removal at this rate, I don't know, another 3 years. So we're looking at almost a 10-year cycle for removal of solid waste.
Wow.
That's great.
I mean, it's really damn impressive. There's some small problems with the mechanism in terms of maintenance. You know, it's a spring mechanism that's rather wimpy, which I think the manufacturers will probably improve with further models. But, yes, I've been very impressed. Again, it's anecdotal, but yeah, those of you who I'm sure use it can attest that it doesn't smell. It's the way to go. BC Parks is installing them big time now throughout the Alpine. So.
Gary, do you have any information from the district on this end, like in terms of like the cost of maintaining the compost toilet versus like a benefit, kind of like cost benefit for this, or probably not on the spot, eh?
It's certainly cheaper than the porta potties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Even with the capital investment?
Well, that's not counting capital. It's the pure operational cost is obviously far cheaper.
It is, okay.
What we have heard is that VCH isn't perhaps as keen on them as we might like.
So that might,
Vancouver Coastal.
Vancouver Coastal Health.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
so that could be a good option maybe for the main parking lot instead of installing the sewage infrastructure. Susan, did you have?
That's exactly what I was thinking about down for the lower parking lot as well, is instead of looking at bringing in water and sewer, could we look at just putting more composting toilets down there just to?
Yeah, it would have to be a double header now.
What sort of lifespan do the ones that are currently there have? Like, how many years will they last?
They're just porta potties.
Oh, they are just porta potties? Oh, okay. Oh, for some reason, I've never been in them. Okay, so.
Well, you can hold it.
So would anyone like to move the priority on the capital projects from, for flush toilets to install a compost toilet, or look into installing?
Is that
Or-
something that's possible?
Well, I'm interested if, they may, if VCH is allowing that in the installation, but it may be because they're in the back country.
But how did we get through it with the ones that we currently have? Okay, I don't.
Forgiveness
Okay.
rather than permission.
Okay.
It was a pilot project, so.
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
Because we'll just call the ones in the parking lot a pilot project as well.
We're expanding.
We're
the pilot.
expanding, exactly.
Put your pump down.
Was the first one installed with some grant funding?
It was.
It was a complicated funding model. I think
Yeah.
it was a Climate Action Network, MEC, everybody kicked in a few bucks. I think they're not cheap, you know. I mean, I'm looking into one for Muirland Park at this time, and you're looking at 50 grand for your basic models. They're not cheap.
So do you want to hold off on updating this one for now? Or would we like to update this capital priority?
Is there any research we can do on it to find out what VCH kind of deems as appropriate or not appropriate?
Could we put that with the district?
I can ask Cindy.
Okay, so let's move on. So does anyone have any things they would like to shift on the management priorities? I think those are all, like the ones in the high, I think are all appropriately placed, but if anybody,
They're all high.
Okay, maintenance work priorities.
Actually, maybe just going back to this, is there anything that we can do to, like, they're all high priority, but we don't really have a strategy for actually doing any of this, implementing any of these? Is there anything that we can do to move this along, or are these all sort of staff things?
Susan?
The debris management strategy, that, with the fire season, I wonder about just like what's gonna happen with all the debris on the ground and having a debris management strategy with, I think the fire chief is bringing forward, fire management policy, and I'm not sure what that will look like for the park.
Yeah, I know they're not sure if a wildfire management plan is in the offing. But if a debris management plan we would need to consult with the fire department, because I'm sure that they want us to be removing potential fuel. And
Is it possible to bring someone in from the fire department for our next meeting to discuss?
I think the more productive way would be to put something together so there's something to discuss.
Okay. Would anybody like to sort of like lead this up, and we can, like, a few of us could discuss kind of as a, like, discuss and bring back to the committee next month or next meeting?
There's a consultant that I work with quite a bit out of North Vancouver, Bruce Blackwell.
I'm looking for his card, I have it here.
He does, fireproofing around Whistler. He's got people up in the interior right now looking at rehabilitation plans, and he's kind of like the guru for doing this type of work. It might be worth just having him come in and sit down for a bit if he's got time or something, just to.
Is he in North Van?
Yeah.
He just gave a presentation at Rotary today.
Oh, yeah.
Is this a jurisdiction of the fire department or Wildfire BC?
I think Wildfire BC is only like outside of the
Okay.
district boundaries.
Wes, what about meeting with him in the park and actually doing like a quick walkthrough,
Yeah,
like
that'd
up the
be
high
pretty
cliff trail
beneficial, yeah, for sure.
and maybe
We
get
could probably pay him, but
That's
maybe
exactly
it could
what
come
I
out
was
of our
thinking.
budget.
Is it
Budget.
as a consultation?
What's that?
rather than
We
what
have
I-
a budget.
We have
Yeah,
operating
we
budget?
probably haven't spent much of it, so.
So
yeah.
I'm still not quite sure how this works. If I were to contact him and request to organize a meeting, would that be something I'd do, or is that something you guys would do?
We should probably.
Like a quote first, obviously, and then, okay.
I think from our point of view, it might be, what I don't want to do is go away and develop something that doesn't answer the questions that you have.
Mm-hmm.
If we had sort of even a list of bullet points of what are the issues and questions that the strategy needs to address, because there's no point in me going away and saying, hey, what a great job I did, and you say you're a clown and that you answered the wrong questions. If I knew the right questions, then we can get in touch with Mr. Blackwell and probably produce something in relatively short order. But I'd want to do the right work.
How does the district fire management plan interact with developing a debris management strategy and prevent and look at how the residential neighborhoods fit into the smoke bluff, management of debris? Because you look at the amount of fuel and stuff that's in the smoke bluff region, is it a problem? Is it being managed properly? Maybe it's good to develop a strategy for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different sort of zones within the park. There's the transmission line right-of-ways, which are their own
Debris
beast.
flow.
And then there's like the areas around the trails and the higher use areas around the crags, and then there's the more like undeveloped areas within the park that they all have their own different management strategies that are needed for them. So we could kind of maybe break it up like that.
Just to clarify, what kind of debris are we talking about? Like just,
Dead branches and trees and stuff.
Fire fuel.
how have they been dealt with in the past?
They've not.
It's big
Well, they've been
piles of-
piled up and sometimes sometimes broken up, chopped up with a chainsaw,
Yeah,
put
like
into
during
crushers.
Crag development.
Yeah, in some cases hauled off where possible.
So just wondering, so doing trail development or crag development, isn't there anything that we have in place to say whatever you are cleaning or clearing, you have to take out? Like, what's our policy on you're building because if we're going to build trails and we're going to be leaving our own debris behind and then coming up with our own debris management plan, is there some sort of accountability that goes behind, like, you build the trail, pack it in, pack it out, or what do we have in
Do we have
place?
anything listed in our vegetation management part of the management plan?
I think we're starting to actually do that.
Okay.
In terms of removal, I'll get
Yeah,
that
it's
in the
been
Crag
done.
group
Yeah.
report, okay?
Okay.
It is a complex problem.
Mhm.
We've dealt with this many times over the years. I mean, it seems rather simple, oh, we just go have a burn, you know? But the problem is to have a burn, you have to have people there 24 hours a day
Controlling.
to this complete with, you know, with spray guns and so on. It's not a simple process, so. But there is possibilities. I'll get to that at Crag.
The last advice we had from a fire chief was to scatter
Yeah, that's what I've
things
been doing.
out rather than building piles. That was our last console that we received.
So we don't have anything in the management plan. I'll make the suggestion that, why don't I put an email out to the committee and calling for people to give a list of questions that they have back to me, and I'll compile a list for the district. We can move forward on that. Is there any other items on this list that anyone thinks we should address this meeting, or we can look at some of them in November as well if we have made progress on this debris management strategy. So Lord, I put you down for trails update because we discussed briefly that you're always around the trails. So
Yeah.
did you have anything?
No,
or-
no,
Okay.
not right now.
Okay. And Gary, did you want to address the BC Hydro clearance update?
So we contacted BC Hydro, and the response was they think everything went really well and they're done.
Okay. It's good to know.
I guess the counterpoint to that was, how does the committee think that went?
What have they done recently? What is the thing that they've done that they're happy with?
What did this year?
Honestly, I don't. I'm afraid I haven't been sort of on this committee for a few meetings now, but Wes, do you know?
I don't. I mean, it's been bird nesting season and fire hazard for so long. I don't remember if they did anything.
We've done anything in the last 2 months.
I think maybe the last meeting I attended, you asked if staff could follow up on some
When it was going to start or what was
hydro
happening.
work, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
It was the hub. Weren't they going to?
They were going to do the cut and treat where they
Oh,
slash
that.
the
And spray.
small
Yeah.
stuff and then do
Right.
little
And they did
squirrels
do
and stuff.
that.
They did do that?
I believe so. I think near Mosquito,
So I did
There's
notice
not
that it
very-
looked like something had been done near Mosquito.
it did look like
And it
that.
looked good, like there was just shrubs, there was no trees, which is good, that's exactly what we
Yeah.
want to see.
Yeah.
There's gonna be like low growing shrubs.
I think that was done 2 seasons ago.
It was, but they.
Yeah. Oh, they redid it?
Yeah,
again
because
or something,
the big leaf maples were growing up again,
Oh,
but
okay.
now they're down.
Did
That's why
Okay.
did they do it near Penny Lane as well? I haven't actually been in that zone for a little bit to see.
I
I
what
feel
that's
like no, Laura, if you know, like I feel like there are trees growing up in that area.
Yeah,
I
so I
know.
don't think
Yeah.
they're done, because that Penny Lane area grows fast.
Yeah.
So maybe they were thinking that that's what they were,
They're thinking that's the only thing they were going to do.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Maybe they're
that,
like, yeah, we did a great job.
yeah, we didn't have to.
Is this something they do yearly?
No, this was something that, didn't we ask them to do this? Because they cleared
Yeah.
everything and we were worried about vegetation growing back. So we asked how could they get involved with us at a very nice price or for free? I don't remember.
No, there's a bit more into the story. So Hydro came and they cleared under their line, and they actually gave this committee around $3,000 to replant, and it was targeted in that Mosquito area, and so that we did plant. We hired a landscaper, we planted shrubs in that area, and they're growing up, and it's going to be a good long-term solution. So I think that was where we wanted them to keep the trees down so those shrubs could establish, but we didn't plant anything in the Penny Lane area,
Mhm.
so that area is a bit different,
Or did
Yeah,
we?
the Penny Lane area definitely still needs to get done.
right?
I don't think it's been done yet.
No, I don't think that was actually the plan at any time, so if we want to do that there, then
When do they come back? Because they do it every 2 years, isn't it? That every 2
They do it whenever things get tall or close to the line, so
it's not every
it
2
could be
years.
every 5 years or
Okay.
6 years or 3 years.
So is this something that maybe in the long-term plan, we want to say next time Hydro comes to Penny Lane, can you squirt some, or find an alternative to keeping the trees down? Is that something that we should put in place?
I think
We
it would
did
have,
that quite extensively with the van, walked through with them a number of occasions.
but yeah, I think that would have to be in concert with this committee planting that area with shrubs
Oh,
as an
that's
alternative
okay.
solution.
So we'd have to do exactly what we did at Mosquito up near Penny Lane. around,
I
or-
mean, that would make sense.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's a good plan. Hydro is, see, like they did, I don't think they wanted to do the second treatment that they did this year because they'd just done it the year before.
Yeah.
So getting them to do it again up at Penny Lane might be a bit of a difficult
Might be
issue.
in
So
their bad books after that.
yeah, maybe we give them a year or something, and then once they come back to, or just before they do it again, we just make sure they do it the cut and treat method.
Do we want to add that to, would that be under management priorities or capital priorities? Management, like,
Management priorities, yeah.
should we add that to the medium term?
Or we can even make it long term, I don't know how long, Wes, how long do you think it would be till those trees start kind of,
Probably another couple of years before they come back there.
so you'd say moderate or long term?
Well, 1 to 3 years is the short term, so yeah, probably in the short term
Short term?
category.
What do you think, Christina?
Yeah, that works. Let's add it as like a moderate priority, I think.
And so we'd need a plan in place as to what would happen in that, like a planting plan.
Okay,
For
so we
that.
can, yeah, we could, so address, planting at the base of Penny Lane, our vegetation strategy at the base of Penny Lane.
When BC Hydro returns?
Yeah. For those of you that were there for the planting, or did you guys, everybody help out with the planting at Mosquito, or was it there? Was anybody there planting, or did someone else?
It was totally done professionally.
It was, okay. When BC Hydro went to the Mosquito area, they had the machines in there and they hauled everything out, they chipped everything, but around Penny Lane there, it's like this deep with 60 years of slash, it's gonna be super difficult planting. So, it's just something to consider, that it might not be as easy as the other one.
Well, I think it's probably, how does everyone feel about, taking a look at these, like how often should we be reviewing these priorities? Do we want to review them every other meeting? Do we want to review them every meeting? I think every meeting might be a bit much because it's every 2 months.
Yeah.
Every half year maybe, every 6 months?
Yeah, so every 2 meetings would be 4 months, or do we want to do 3 or I guess 3 meetings.
Don't forget we only meet, 4 times a year?
Yeah, so let's do it every other meeting, and so then we can look at in the January meeting, or we'll have to look at the meeting schedule for next year at the next meeting, but the meeting following the next one, we can review these again and decide what parts of our budget we want to send.
Yeah, what's in the fall and what's in the spring?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay, so let's move on to Crag work group.
Yeah, as I discussed at the last meeting, SAS has introduced a new program called Crag Keepers, which hangs on the back of our other successful program, the 10-3 Trail program. And this is, both these programs have worked to the benefit of Slope Bluff Park in recent times. Toby has already made mention of elephant sauce. That was done professionally by a local logger, the actual tree removal, but the debris pile was managed by a volunteer group from the local Coast Mountain Academy, I believe.
Yep.
And again, that was a SAS initiative to organise this group through Toby, whose son goes to the school. So that was that particular element. At the same time, there's a huge, when we walked through the park during the walkthrough, people remarked on the huge pile of debris on top of Highcliffe area as a fire hazard. Well, SAS again came forward with a volunteer group from the United States. Forgive me, I've forgotten their name offhand, I couldn't find the reference to it tonight, but quite a large and enthusiastic semi-Christian good works type of group, and they did a phenomenal job under John Harvey's sort of supervision and removed all that debris down to the Blind Channel, where I believe now Heavy Duty or Alan Stevenson has arranged with Windfirm to do a pro bono chipping job this winter. So that dealt with that debris pile quite effectively. Well, that is to say it's low hanging fruit. it's easy to get to. We can get machines in through Perry Beckham's property with his permission. Not so easy in other areas, although we did manage at Roman's Corner with his kids hauling it down through a significant distance. So debris could be managed in this manner with a combination of volunteers and professional workers. It gets more difficult the higher we go. And the other thing too is we should be encouraging route developers to be very proactive about their debris. Best practices calls for a fairly thorough cleaning of the Crag, which generates a fair amount of debris. So they should take some ownership, and in this sense, Alan Stevenson has again showed the example of how it should be done. So we should encourage other route developers to take a lead on that and try to be more proactive. So by and large, the Crag Keeper program is off and running. It's been very successful. The park has benefited at Highcliffe and Second Avenue, both very popular, or at least one is very popular. The other one could become more popular with the cleaning. They've also been active in Urban Park and other areas.
So which groups who did that? Crag Keepers, that was VRCG.
Yeah, this was Crag Keepers from the British Columbia Mountaineering Club and the Alpine Club of Canada. We also have connections with the Varsity Outdoor Club. They will be joining the program soon, and we're in discussion with the climbing gyms to maybe have them sort of take part in this thing. So let's see if we can manage the debris at a small level with volunteers for the time being and see where that goes. Anyway, that's all I have to say, Crew. This program has been quite successful. I hope we can carry it forward.
I just wanted to mention Elephant House again. So that was done some work there, but the area underneath the cliff could definitely benefit from some tidying up. So the objective is trying to get that cliff used more. It has been very, the tree clearance actually has brought a lot more light on the cliff, but I'm not sure if that's something should be volunteer done, or whether it should be, it certainly involves, sharp tools. Mostly it's about clearing brush, small amounts of brush, or whether that's something John could go in John's notice contract, no, actually not.
Well, typically I would see the model that we would generate a volunteer group like we did this year, and John would supervise them.
Right.
He would do the dangerous stuff. The kids
I think sadly there, I think it's almost all dangerous stuff, because it's all, it's all sharp tool type work, so it's probably not something suitable for a school group.
Well, what this group did at Highcliffe was mostly Holloway. So John
the haul-away element of this would be pretty small, because it's mostly very small. It's very small vegetation, but it just needs a proper clean
Would it
up.
be snips or with like a power tool?
No, I think snips.
Like,
whatever they are. Yeah.
Volunteers are okay with snips. We obviously don't encourage kids.
Yeah.
We could look at one of our final trail days of the year, whether it's one you're taking out or I'm taking out.
There's always lots of work to do. Finding work's not a problem.
Yeah, so I think, really my question is that something that goes into John's maintenance contracts? It sounds like not, if something should be volunteer. It would normally be volunteer done. Feels like something that would be volunteer done,
Okay, great. Brian, thanks very much for organizing the Crag work groups in the Bluffs.
It's just us initiative.
Okay, so does anyone have anything they want to put forward for recommendations to council? I think we've kind of discussed all the pertinent things. And there's no referrals from council, Susan? Would that come from you?
No, I don't think there is anything.
Okay. Let's have a round table, and we'll start with Matt and go around.
Okay.
I'm good as well. I
Carol?
hope you had a great climbing season.
Feeling great, good.
Everything.
I think we kind of did the round table as we were.
So I have something. So I asked Susan whether she thought it was appropriate to this forum or not. So I go to the Adventure Centre frequently in order to carpool with people to climbing, and today, for the first time since the rope runner ropes course went in, there was loud music from rope runner, which dominated the whole environment. So I think would have been very audible on the blind channel. I think would have been audible probably at some of the lower cliffs as well. And I was very surprised by that. I went and asked them why they were doing it and whether they had permission to do it, but it seemed, I wasn't aware it was part of their sort of tenure agreement to play loud music there. It seemed wholly inappropriate to that location. So I raised that. I don't know how, I wondered how to take that forward. This opportunity appeared. It was coincidentally this morning. So
Does the district have any bylaws, like would noise bylaws pertain to their lease agreement as well?
Yes, it would.
Do they have a noise, are they allowed to play music?
Yes.
With
I
our
don't
noise
think-
bylaws from a certain time to a certain time, is that what the deal is, or is this because it's on public land, different?
No, I mean, the noise bylaw implies that the lease is probably silent on the issue.
That's exactly what I remember, there's a noise.
I'll let our real estate division know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Brian, did you have anything?
Oh, no, I tend to agree with Toby. I would find the music extremely annoying when I have my coffee at the Venture Centre or go down
Absolutely.
blind channel at times.
Yeah, just climbing in the morning, you don't want to be, it's like hiking the chief when someone has a stereo on.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, that's a secondary thought I felt about this is that in terms of the image it projects, if you're the sort of person like me who finds it objectionable to people carrying little portable music boxes up when they're hiking, even the adventure centre's original purpose was supposed to be some kind of hub to educate and talk about the special adventure activities of Squamish, to have sort of essentially, Mountain FM type music playing loudly in the parking lot is just sending a signal that, we really don't care in this community anymore. About things like that. I just thought it was extraordinary in terms of, what it says about Squamish.
Well, but you live near around that area too, right?
I don't live, but I don't live close to
But has there been more noises, or is it just today that it's
No,
been like that?
the Hospital Hill residential area is a fair distance from there. There are people who live closer than that. I think the impacts of that site are local to that site, but also possibly to people climbing in the lower part of the bluffs, like a Boulder Gully or a Crag or whatever.
What I just mean to say is maybe it's one of those things that we should keep track of in an agenda or keep track of on multiple and have evidence of them having that, because if this is I don't know how many times people have climbed and have heard that, or if it's just today that it happened.
No, it started, as far as I know, it started today. It might have started yesterday, but it certainly wasn't there, say, last Thursday.
Okay.
It's a new thing. They obviously, I don't know, maybe they installed it. My primary question is, are they allowed to do it, really?
And at what volume, is it, can we maybe make a motion to direct staff to go and check and see if they're meeting the noise bylaws? Because, I don't really like the idea of having loud music playing either.
My concern would be the rock deflecting, because I know that up further, you can hear noise from trains and everything else quite loudly.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it amplifies in some of the rock areas, which would really be irritating.
I can hear Matt Barker calling his kids into class. So.
That's only when I'm using my outdoor voice.
Noise does travel.
Yeah, it does.
So, is that a motion we would put forward to the district, or is it just a request we would make?
So watching brief at this time.
Can
I
I
think Gary
request
said
that
he
the
was gonna
district assess whether or not they're meeting the noise bylaws? Can I put that forward as a motion?
Yep.
And Gary, you just said you were going to talk to real estate
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I'll let them know that there's been a concern expressed about the noise coming from.
How many concerns? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 concerns?
So,
Yeah, you don't
you don't need a motion, okay.
But I'll make note of it and it will come back from staff at the next meeting.
Okay, so I had a couple things. I wanted to know if anybody, I heard through the grapevine that there was some issues with people installing anchors at Penny Lane. Do you guys, does anyone have any more information? I don't know if that's pertinent to the
Like
advisory
Like
committee.
my anchors or actually bolts?
How many hours do you have to discuss this?
I don't have a
This-
lot, but
this
but I
goes
just was
back-
interested if there was any more information.
Was there some recent mank
There's,
installs?
no, it's a historic, do you want to explain it, or?
I'm happy to explain it briefly. Yeah, I mean, so my so you know, I mean, Brian might want to interject there. So my understanding is the conventional norm in the smoke bluffs, and probably consistent with things that have been agreed with the district in the past, is that climbs have properly installed anchors at the top of them. And that is the norm almost everywhere. The climb called Penny Lane at Penny Lane Cliff has a historical precedent that the guy who put it up, Anders Oram, who has been a notable volunteer for decades, he feels there shouldn't be anchors at the top, and there is a sort of highly convoluted safety argument, which personally I think makes no sense at all, that there shouldn't be anchors at the top. So this climb has this peculiarity that there are no anchors at the top, and once now and then, every decade or so, somebody goes and installs some bolts up there, mistakenly thinking it's, you know, that it would be generally, that it would be a normal thing to do, and somebody, I believe in the past, Anders, but in this case I think not, comes and chops them. So this has happened, we've just been through another cycle of that, and there are about 3,000 comments about it on the internet, none of which, you know, we need to pay attention to. But I mean, it's something that's happened. I mean, I thought it was, I suppose something struck me as curious is that probably if we were looking at this purely from the point of view of how is this park supposed to be managed, an agreement's been put in place before, you know, sort of understanding of how safety and anchors supposed to be dealt with, probably should be anchors up there, but you know,
It's not really our place to.
it's probably not it's probably not a good use of time with this committee to get too into that.
Thanks for letting.
I think it's regret personally, you know.
Sometime.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I had one last
That was a
comment,
good
and it's not really a question or like a discussion, but I did want to commend the district on the enforcing the overnight parking in the bluffs, because I think that was taken care of quite well.
That is an interesting thing because they have the park downtown is now full of climbers. So I don't know, I keep walking by and thinking, is it it doesn't seem to be a problem, and do we need washrooms there? That's what, all I could think about is that another place that needs.
Are they killing the landscaping?
Are they killing the landscape?
People are camping there or just van camping?
Van camping, so
Right,
it's not
yeah.
really
Yeah.
20 vehicles,
Yeah.
overnight vehicles and.
24 was I think the most was weekend one morning.
Yeah.
That's why the gate's been reinstalled. We're now figuring out how to operationally lock that at whatever 10 and open it at 6. You've got to find staff, you've got to find a contractor, you've got to find money to pay the contractor. People don't like to get up early, do overtime.
Could I comment on that as the Squamish Access Society rep? So, you know, for the last 2 years now, we've considered that the whole issue of van camping, you know, parking provision being taken up and so forth, being one of the most, you know, the highest priority items. You know, and we've tried to encourage, where possible, dialogue between different land managers, between the district and BC Parks and the Crown land managers, because essentially whatever policy anybody adopts in these different areas essentially pushes, you know, tends to push the problem somewhere else. So BC Parks have been enforcing at the chief, and that has pushed people, you know, further north. And we, you know, we think climbers should be respectful of the law and should not be camping illegally. Clearly, that's has to be our policy as a non-profit. You know, sorry, as an advocacy group. However, it does feel like it would be that there are possible solutions if there was, you know, probably a coordinated approach. I know, for example, that FLNRO have talked about the possibility of finding land a little north of Squamish where van camping might, sort of informal van camping might work. But I feel like if there was more regular contact between the three main land management groups, there would probably be, these solutions could be arrived at, you know, quicker. So that's really what I would say. Is
Those conversations are happening between
Right.
bylaw enforcement enforcement
Yeah.
and the province. It's symptomatic of a problem we've all seen around the
Yeah.
community, whether it's on the Spit Road or it's
Yeah.
on Third Avenue. Everywhere we're seeing camping that's
Yeah.
not appropriate.
Yeah.
Goes right back to fire management.
Yeah. And one other
I mean,
thing.
there are basic sanitation laws and
Yeah.
people camping in large numbers in the same place over and over again, and it's become a lot. I've been here close to 3 years. It's become a lot worse in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
To the point that the displacement issue is less important than dealing with the issue. So, I mean, council is very aware of it. The issue is chronically in front of council now about enforcing around illicit or inappropriate camping, and smoke bluffs is one of them. I know
Yeah.
we're servicing those porta potties 2 or 3 times a week now.
Yeah.
It's also difficult with the other campground being shut down for sanitary reasons makes it very difficult because we also do not have anywhere to put the campers, so it's.
So at
Not good.
Cheekamus, at the Cheekamus rec site, check for climbers, there is new camping provision, and I believe, Wes, you probably know
They're
about
putting
this,
some
but they're
more
putting
into
more in, is going in this, I
driving
think this
sites.
month, right? So there's more capacity there. There's an education process, I think, to persuade climbers, particularly, not all van campers are climbers, but there is significant overlap, particularly visiting climbers, van campers. There needs to be education that actually you do need to drive north of town, and this is actually will be, there's quite a lot of capacity there, and you don't even have to pay at the moment. So it's definitely an education element to it.
That's excellent to know. How's that going too?
They did a
They're
really good
also,
job. They put in bear bins too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're also installing another 75 or so campsites at Anderson Beach pretty soon. On Squamish
Province has
River.
got a number of new campsites.
Yeah, it's going to be another.
Oh, that's
further
further
up
up Squamish
That's
Valley.
Yeah, not that far up Squamish River.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
We had some discussions about ceasing operating the campground at Brennan Park, and we know we can't do that anymore. We're going to have to keep running.
But we also need to make it regulated. We're not compliant because we don't have water inside. So that
We
has,
do have water with that, so.
there was a reason that the campground, it was sanitary or water, I can't remember.
Grey water, that's been correct. There's a grey water disposal site at the
Right, excellent.
Can I have one more to introduce a good news story?
Absolutely.
BC Parks has significantly increased its uniform staff.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Uh,
About time.
two new people have been brought on board, full-time rangers, senior rangers, one of whom will be focused on the Chief Shan Murin circuit, and one will be focusing on the more northern sites, Garibaldi and so on. And that's in addition to the senior ranger, Kevin Wagner, who recently joined, 6 or 7 months ago, and the existing staff that have been there. So it's a really good news story actually to see that happening. So.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I think we've kind of touched upon a lot of good things today. So would anyone like to put forward a motion to terminate? Terminate the meeting? Or close the meeting? Anyone second? Toby, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Wow. Thanks, Christy.